After the Sao Paulo disaster, the heaviest voice of all arrived at Ferrari, that of John Elkann. And this time the message leaves no room for interpretation. It's direct, clear, if we want a real scolding for Leclerc and Hamilton. The double withdrawal in Brazil was very damaging. 0 points. 4th position in the Constructors' Championship and 36 points behind Mercedes, which is 2nd. In today's video, we will talk about this situation at Ferrari. We need to see how McLaren is handling the championship battle with Oscar Piastri in trouble. And finally, let's see what Andrea Stella did at the end of the Grand Prix. Before we begin, please leave a supportive like. And now let's see everything in detail. During an event at Coney, the president wanted to clarify his vision. In WEC, we won everything, both as constructors and drivers, because we were united. In Formula 1, however, Brazil was a huge disappointment. Our mechanics work very well during pit stops, the engineers are improving the car, but the rest is not up to par. The drivers need to focus on driving and talk less. However, this message makes no sense when directed at Leclerc and Hamilton, who faced a nightmare weekend after the double withdrawal in Brazil, but it's not their fault. Elkan reminded us that the SF25 has improved, but not enough to reach the goals. And this is true. And above all, for him, the key is cohesion. When Ferrari is a team, we win, as we have demonstrated in the WEC. John Elkann's reference is also to Frédéric Vasseur, who, according to Ferrari's president, is absolutely dedicated to making Ferrari perform and has the full trust of the ownership. But the warning remains clear. We need drivers less focused on image and more on the track. This, according to John Elkann, who has clarified his stance. In a year when the endurance team won everything, Formula 1 has fallen behind, and that's simply not good enough. But perhaps the fault is not so much with the drivers, but more with those who build the car, and thus the ecosystem created by John Elkann himself. Now the priority is to finish the championship in 2nd place among constructors, a goal that the president defines as not impossible. The feeling is that in Maranello, the time for words is over, and Elkann, after months of silence, has decided to send a message to the public to make it clear to everyone, inside and outside the team, that Ferrari can no longer afford divisions, distractions, or excuses. Leclerc and Hamilton have been warned, and from now on, results are all that count for John Elkann. Have you ever searched for a replacement part for your car or even paint to use and got lost among 1,000 results and wrong sites? Don't worry, it happened to me too until I started using Autodoc. There, you only find parts compatible with your car. Shipping is fast, and you have up to 200 days to return without stress. I got this black spray paint for the bodywork and the result is amazing. If you want to renew your car's details or get replacement parts, go to Autodoc and use my code Rastro to get a 5% discount on everything you find on the site. I'll leave the link in the description and also in the first comment. Don't rely on external sellers with poor quality. Trust only Autodoc, which is the best for replacement parts for your car. I've been using it for a long time now and I've always been satisfied. Besides, you also find rare replacements that don't exist on other sites. And if you don't know how to fit the replacement parts on Autodoc's YouTube channel, you find tutorials that help you step by step to install the part, even if you're not a mechanic. In short, trust only Autodoc. And if you need replacement parts, you find the link in the description and the first comment. Remember to use the code Rastro. That said, let's get back to us. I must be honest, after such a disastrous weekend for Ferrari in Brazil, I didn't expect such words from the president. So a very chaotic, unfortunate situation. Hamilton lost 30 points of downforce from the floor. He couldn't keep it on the road. The car was undrivable. Certainly, qualifying didn't help the 7-time world champion, but he found himself in the race in a situation beyond his control, with many unfortunate events happening to both Ferrari drivers. So saying they needed to talk less and let the track do the talking at this moment is wrong, because it creates even more division, which is what John Elkann himself doesn't want in the team. So you understand well that these are words that create tension within Ferrari. In fact, everything that could go wrong went wrong in Brazil, with almost surgical precision, if you will. After the double withdrawal, no points and 37 points behind Mercedes, the blow is very hard in the battle for 2nd place among constructors, with Red Bull meanwhile overtaking Maranello to 3rd place. Charles Leclerc exited the stage after just 6 laps, overwhelmed by the Piastri-Antonelli crash, while Lewis Hamilton experienced a true ordeal. Already at the start, he was hit in turn 1 by Carlos Sainz's Williams, a contact that damaged the floor of the SF25 and completely compromised the aerodynamics. After a few minutes, Lewis also touched Franco Colapinto's Alpine. From then on, his race was just a slow agony. The single-seater was unmanageable, losing stability in braking up to 30 to 40 points of aerodynamic load. Vasseur explained the decision bluntly. Withdrawing the car was the logical choice. Hamilton had lost 30 points of load, and after 2 incidents, there was nothing to be done. An inevitable withdrawal that weighs like a stone because up to that point, according to the team, Hamilton had good pace, and if it weren't for that initial damage, he could have contended for an important placement. Leclerc, on the other hand, was in full contention for the podium. Second, at the time of the contact, he was maintaining a pace that would have allowed him to stay close to Norris. Vasseur confirmed that the Monegasque was in the right position to fight for the victory, or at least for the podium, but the crash excluded him in a mocking way. Not only did we lose points, Vasseur said, but we also gave them away to our opponents. Ferrari leaves Brazil with broken bones, unable to show the true potential of the SF25, which finally seemed competitive in race pace. Even though we must be honest, the weekend started uphill, recovering well between sprint and qualifying, but ended in the worst way. And Leclerc said it clearly. It's frustrating, but we need to react. We'll need 3 perfect weekends to try to reclaim second place. And now all the pressure shifts to Las Vegas, where Maranello will have to respond with action. A demonstration of pride is needed, because the feeling is that Ferrari is still paying not only for mistakes on the track, but also for a lack of clarity in decisive moments. In short, Interlagos has left a deep mark. Hamilton frustrated, Leclerc disappointed, and Vasseur forced to look for motivation in a season that risks slipping away. There are 3 races left, and the goal now seems farther away than ever. And we must also hear the words of Oscar Piastri, who spoke out about his position at the moment of contact. Indeed, Oscar Piastri is not having it. After receiving a 10-second penalty at the Brazilian and Grand Prix for the incident with Antonelli and Leclerc, the Australian reacted strongly. I couldn't disappear. A contact that decided the race, knocked out Leclerc, and sparked a new controversy in the paddock. It all happened at the restart after the safety car on lap 6. Ahead was Norris, then Antonelli, Piastri, and Leclerc. Piastri attempts an inside attack, slightly blocks the front wheels, and hits Antonelli, who in turn ends up colliding with Leclerc. The result is that Ferrari loses the left front wheel, suspension destroyed, and Leclerc is forced to retire. A dynamic about which the FIA had no doubt. The fault lies with Piastri. 10-second penalty. But for the McLaren driver, the judgment is unfair. He had a clear opportunity on the inside. Yes, I blocked the wheel, but I was perfectly at the apex on the white line. I couldn't go further left, and I can't simply disappear. Piastri explains that it wasn't a gamble. It wasn't a dive bomb, but he overdid the braking. The other 2 braked later, and the inside was a bit damp. I was already completely alongside. I couldn't back out. Words that sound like a confident defense. However, the contact had a devastating effect. Leclerc eliminated. Antonelli, despite the damage, finished second, and Piastri was relegated to a comeback, finishing 5th. A huge damage even from a World Championship perspective, because after Norris's victory, the gap in the standings between the 2 teammates increases to 24 points. Piastri added, "If I had gone deeper, it would have been really ambitious, but I stayed on my line. If I had gone wide, missed the apex, then yes, I would understand the penalty, but it didn't happen that way." In short, according to him, it was a racing incident, a calculated risk that turned into a disaster, but without intention or recklessness. And for many, the penalty seemed indeed harsh, considering the contact arose from a 3-way situation in the middle of a corner at very high speed, with practically no space. However, the FIA did not hesitate, and the decision left heavy consequences, not only because Leclerc lost a podium chance, but because the incident took away precious points from Piastri himself, who now sees the Drivers' Championship increasingly leaning towards Lando Norris. But the doubt remains. Did Piastri really have to back off? Is it Kimi Antonelli's fault for not widening his trajectory? Or was it a normal restart tussle punished too severely? One thing is certain, Piastri's message is clear. He said, "I can't disappear." He thinks he made the right move, and the others made mistakes. But at the same time, if you're fighting for the championship, you can't afford to take such a high risk. And I want to let you hear the accusation of over-management, meaning that they over-manage the drivers within McLaren. Let's see why. The analysis came from commentator Alex Jacques, who said McLaren managed 2 very strong drivers, but perhaps they overmanaged them. A heavy phrase because the MCL39 is the car to beat this year. Right from the season opener in Australia, it was clear this would be a 2-man championship. Norris versus Piastri. And for much of the season, the Woking team dominated the constructors' standings, at one point holding a lead of over 100 points on Verstappen. Then Red Bull returned to win 3 out of 4 races, closing the gap. But the twist came later. Norris responded with 2 consecutive victories, in Mexico and Brazil, returning as the leader in the Drivers' Championship with a 24-point lead over Piastri. And here the doubt arises. McLaren has won a lot thanks to its internal balance. The papaya rules, as they are called, impose respect and absolute equality between the 2 drivers. No team orders, no favoritism. In theory, a correct choice, but in practice, something is not working. The most evident example is Monza. Piastri was ahead, but after a slow pit stop, Norris lost his position. The order immediately came from the pit wall. Oscar gives the place back to Lando, a decision that many saw as a sign of favoritism. Then in Singapore, with roles reversed, Norris hits Piastri at the start, but the team does not intervene. Norris receives an internal consequence, but never made public, which is already cancelled in the next race when the Australian, involved in multiple contact in Austin, ends up colliding with Norris himself. Result: the tension grows, but is hidden behind smiles and pats on the back. Jacques said it clearly, it's not the civil war of 2007 between Hamilton and Alonso. But there are similarities. According to Jacques, McLaren should have managed until they won the constructors and let the two drivers race. Instead, the team remained stuck in the middle, neither full freedom nor true hierarchies. And now Verstappen is 25 points behind Piastri. But objectively, there's no risk of losing the championship. I also want you to hear Lando Norris's words about Las Vegas because they are very interesting. In fact, after the victory, he let himself go. I ignore everyone who talks nonsense. This was his post-race comment, direct, sharp, and clearly aimed at those who criticized him in recent months. And right after, in the press conference, Norris decided to clarify. I don't have anything against anyone in particular, he said, but there are always people out there trying to bring you down. It's normal, but when you're in the spotlight, the pressure is different. You hear everything, even what you shouldn't hear. After a difficult 2024 and a challenging start to the season compared to teammate Piastri, Norris burst out at a decisive moment. 2 consecutive wins in Mexico and Brazil, and now a 24-point lead in the championship. He has a new maturity built also by learning. Before, I cared too much about how I was perceived. I always tried to please everyone, but this weakened me. Now I've learned to be myself, say what I think, and focus only on myself. It's a heavy statement because Norris is one of the few drivers who shows his emotions. He doesn't hide behind an image, but because of this, he's often been underestimated, considered too sensitive to win a championship. Today, however, he is showing that his vulnerability can be a strength, and the opportunity to prove it came right in the same conference. A journalist asked him if now that he leads the championship, he should start thinking like a favorite, and Norris's answer was an elegant but tough slap. No, I say what I want. If I think it will be difficult, I say it. I'm not here to lie to seem more confident. Then he added, I don't think we'll be strong in Las Vegas. We've never done well there, and I don't see why it should change. Maybe I'll win, but I won't say it will be easy just to make you happy. A straightforward Norris who talks like he races, without filters and masks, and who finally seems to have found his mental balance. The same driver who a year ago in Brazil crumbled under pressure, today wins as a leader and responds like a champion. Everything has changed. Now he no longer seeks approval, only the truth. And when a driver starts to ignore the noise, trusting only himself, he becomes truly dangerous for everyone else. However, there is something that troubled Andrea Stella at the end of the race, who indeed was irritated while analyzing Verstappen's race pace. During the post-race of the Brazilian Grand Prix, a scene intrigued the fans. Andrea Stella, visibly irritated, is captured by cameras at the McLaren pit wall gesturing in front of a monitor. Many wondered what he was looking at. Now we know. The McLaren team principal was analyzing a very precise graph, the so-called race trace, a tool that shows in real time the evolution of the gap between drivers throughout the race. Not just a lap time, but a real X-ray of the strategy and race pace. And right on that graph, Stella pointed to a blue line, Verstappen's. The heated discussion with sporting director Randy Singh was directly related to Red Bull's incredible comeback, starting from the pit lane and finishing with a podium in 3rd position. A performance that left the McLaren pit wall puzzled because while Norris secured the victory and Piastri wasted a double due to the crash in turn 1 with Antonelli and Leclerc, Verstappen was doing something remarkable. A perfect comeback built on a constant pace and impeccable strategic management. Max Verstappen himself thanked the team for the car given on Sunday, and Lambias himself apologized to Verstappen for the wrong strategy on Saturday in qualifying, where Max was forced to exit in Q1. But in the race images, Stella is seen pointing with his finger at the exact moment of Verstappen's second pit stop, then following his graph curve for the rest of the stint. A very clear gesture as he was trying to understand how Red Bull managed to gain so much ground. Probably the discussion with Singh was precisely about this. Why did we manage differently with Piastri? Did we underestimate the second part of the race? Questions that arise from the fact that McLaren, despite having the fastest car of the weekend, missed out on a double. Norris was perfect in front, but Piastri, after the contact with Antonelli, paid dearly for the mistake and finished only 5th behind Verstappen. It is therefore possible that Stella was already reviewing the alternative strategy Piastri could have used against Red Bull at that moment. A quick analysis, technical, but with that frustrated tone that betrays the feeling of a missed opportunity. Because yes, McLaren won, but they also left crucial points on the table in terms of the championship, drivers and constructors. And if we look closely at the scene, Stella isn't angry with Norris or Piastri. He seems angry with the numbers, with that graph that mercilessly shows Verstappen's progression lap by lap. In the end, this is the difference between a calm victory and a nervous victory. McLaren dominated, but Red Bull, even starting from the back, can still threaten everything. And the fact that Andrea Stella, right after the race, was already comparing the data of the direct rivals says it all. It's proof that the walking team doesn't settle. But it's also a clear signal at McLaren that there's respect for Verstappen, but also a hint of unease. Because if a Red Bull starting from the pit lane can still get on the podium, it means the war is far from over. Surely the 49-point gap between Norris and Verstappen impacts the drivers' standings. There are 3 races left and only Norris can lose the championship. We will see how it develops in the next races as well. Let me know in the comments your opinion on all the topics we covered in the video. From Gianelka's words to Vassour's, the situation at Ferrari, Piastri's words about the accident, and Norris's about the upcoming races, and of course this episode with Andrea Stella. I'm curious to read and respond to all your comments. As always, I remind you to leave a like, subscribe, and activate notifications so you don't miss any videos on the channel. That's all from Rasta. See you in the next video.